So Rich is the CIO at Conservice. He's originally from Blackfoot, Idaho. He started at Idaho State University pursuing a degree in mechanical engineering. He graduated from Utah State University in 2005 with a degree in business information systems. He then started to work at Conservice and has been there since graduation, as the company has grown from under 30 to over 1,000 employees in 10 years. He is currently the Chief Information Officer and is experienced in a wide range of technology and applications. Rich is also a member of the USU Data Analytics and Information System Advisory Council. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris and Rich. Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much, Victor. All right. Rich, have a seat. I hope you all absorbed that. I mean, Conservice grew from 30 employees to over 1,000 in 10 years.
And yeah, quite a ride. Currently, we're at about 3,700 employees.
That's amazing.
And yeah, interesting. Shout out to the founder, Dave Jenkins of Conservice. He truly had the vision, and he put in a lot of time and blood and sweat and tears, and he allowed a couple of us to be on that ride with him. We always joke that Dave was an HR guy by heart, and so he thought Conservice was a big HR experiment. And he's like, well, what happens if I take a chance on you? What'll happen? And I was the janitor, so I got to clean up the messes that were made. But it's been quite an experience. I feel very fortunate.
That's awesome. So that's the title of your upcoming autobiography, From Janitor to CIO, then, is that right?
I think better said would be from janitor to head janitor.
Well, tell us a little bit. Dave Jenkins is a good friend of the school. He actually sits on the Huntsman School's National Advisory Board. He's the chair of that board right now, and just a great friend to Huntsman, great friend to USU. But I want you students to understand that big ideas are important. At an early stage. I mean, of course, now Conservice is a really big company. It's the largest utility management company in the world. And it's right here in Cache Valley.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah, but it didn't start, without kind of an initial idea. And I want you students to listen to this, because these ideas come from young people like you who are just kind of starting out and trying to fill a gap. So tell us a little bit about what Dave identified, in terms of his big idea and how that kind of evolved, and now what Conservice does.
I will, and I appreciate you looking at me when you said young people. That was good. That was good.
Rich looks very young, by the way.
So the story goes, does everybody know who Wasatch Properties is in town? Deloy Hansen owns that company. Deloy, many years ago, when he started to get into property management, and he's a sharp guy. He used to be a construction guy, and then he went and he put all his chips in one basket and went and became an accountant. Got his accounting degree from USU. And then he said, we're gonna invest in properties and we're gonna run them. And he hired this guy from Skyview named Dave Jenkins. And Dave he's a pretty sharp nerd. He's a tall, skinny, calculator in the pocket, typical, like when he dressed up for Halloween as a nerd, he just came to work normally. That's the kind of guy that he was. And super smart guy. And he had experience in HR. And so he was an HR person by nature, but he had a pretty good tech skill set. And in doing that, Deloy came to Dave and he said, man, we're just getting killed by utilities. Like, we're just paying over, we're paying under, we have these late fees. And if you imagine, let me back up just a hair. So when I was at Utah State, I was the property manager at Oak Ridge Apartments. Everybody know where Oak Ridge Apartments is at? Yeah. Woo-hoo! Yeah. Go Oak Ridge. I got all kinds of funny stories about Oak Ridge, by the way. But when I was there was 150 apartments, 4 students per apartment, 600 students who lived there. And I don't know if it's changed or not. There were 3 big water meters on the property. And at the time, we just did an all-inclusive deal. So you paid, I think it was $26.70 for the year, and you got utilities. We didn't have internet. That was back before, so that's going to age me a little bit. So I'm not as young as that last comment. But it was a mess to manage the utilities. It was a mess. Like it was always over, it was always under. We had to charge students back if they went over their overage.
So basically, unlimited hot showers. You
Yeah.
could stand there.
Yeah, just let it run.
Basking
Let
in
it
the
run,
hot
baby.
water all
Let it
day.
run.
Same price.
Let it run.
For utilities.
So imagine that same problem across any property. And in Conservice, we've identified these lines of business. We call them biz brands. And multifamily is a different biz brand than student housing is a different biz brand than single family. And all these things have emerged, but they have a common denominator, and that's utilities. And when Deloy talked to Dave, he said, we're just getting killed by utilities. And the story goes that Dave went into his office, and being his smart self, he came back out a couple hours later with the idea of Conservice. And it was simply to serve the Wasatch properties. And then after they had a little bit of success, they said, we can market this. This is a problem-solving ability for really any type of dwelling.
So from early on, what year was Conservice established, first of all?
2000.
And then what year did you?
I joined in 2005. And here's the kicker to that. So Dave told me specifically, he's like, we didn't start making money until 2005. I'm not going to brag about that, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, all of our students in our classes know about correlation and causation. So
Yeah.
you can draw your own judgment. But
That's
I'd say the more tech people you have involved, the better off you are.
We definitely took that approach. So, and just a little more history of Conservice. So there was one girl who was going to join us today. Her name is Tiffany Bershaw. If you don't know Tiffany, she's one you need to meet. We'll bring her to another one. She's the person who hired me. I actually worked for Conservice for the first 6 months doing an internship from Utah State, and I worked for free. I just went and I did the traditional model of, crap, I've got a job at Oak Ridge. I've got to have time to do that. I've got to provide for my wife. My wife's going to school, like all this stuff. And they were gracious enough to let me do their backups and work on email filtering back when our entire mail exchange was 16 gig.
So how?
It's horrible.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's like the
in
size
and
of an
itself,
attachment
that
now.
statement. But yeah, that wouldn't even power most of these students' phones now.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about how your tech needs have kind of evolved over the years as well. I mean, over the past 15 years in your journey with Conservice. I mean, what kinds of skills are you looking for from students now that are maybe that have evolved since you were hired 15 years ago?
Sure. So from the faculty standpoint, anybody have a business information systems degree? That used to be a thing? There's one. Yes. Okay. Two. Okay. So it used to be business information systems. So when I graduated with my undergrad from Utah State, it was business information systems, and I did a minor in Spanish because I lived in Argentina for a couple of years. And I thought I would use the heck out of that, and I speak horrible Spanish now. So that was not as killer as I thought it might be for this current job. And my emphasis in business information systems was websites and databases. And back in that time, that was the emerging tech. That's what was coming up. There were like these horrible websites online. If you go to Craigslist, they all looked like that, but unintentionally. And then databases, there weren't a lot of options for database. And so the school taught SQL Server, and we got a copy of Visual Studio, and it came with a baked-in portion of Crystal Reports. So we knew we had data, we knew we had to view that data, and we knew we had to do something with the data. So, and I would say conceptually, that still holds true. But the tools that we've implemented and used to do that are completely different now.
So how so? Just tell us a little bit about what kinds of skills you're looking for now.
So for example, one of the gentlemen that I brought with me today, his name is Colton Milne. Colton, stand up.
Let's give it up for Colton. We're gonna hear from Colton in just a second, so don't get too comfortable, Colton.
So Colton too is a USU grad, but I remember hiring Colton. If you think of Conservice and what we do with utility bills, we built a project called Synergy, and Synergy was simply the product name for a piece of software to manage your utility expense. So if you're a utility provider like Rocky Mountain Power, you would send a bill with all of the charges, all the consumption, all the taxes, all the stuff to like Oak Ridge, right? And Oak Ridge would get that bill and they would say, okay, this is a $100,000 utility bill. And if we're late, then we pay 5%, so it's $105,000. And if we're not late, then life's good. What we discovered in doing that is that 1 out of 5 utility bills has an error. And I remember when we processed our very first bill, the first day, we used to process 1 bill a month. Colton, how many bills do we process now?
It's something like 40 million.
A year. That's a year.
40 million, he said, a year. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're at about 40 million bills a year.
About 70,000 a day.
Yeah, about 70,000 bills a day is what we process. And originally, if I go back to my database concept and we have data and what do we do with that data, we had somebody with 2 screens, used to be on 1 screen, somebody with 2 screens. These were the big CRT monitors. Anybody remember what that is? Big back. Where somebody would have a data entry screen on 1 screen and a copy of the bill on the other screen. And they would say, okay, 1 goes here, this is the provider, we're going to put that there, and they would transfer this data. And we got to be really good at that. 1 bill at a time, and we still have people who are wizards. I mean, they can 10 key faster than anybody I know due to this data entry platform that we built. Now, when I hired Colton, we said, Colton, we need a better way to do that. And so Colton became a master of a process called Anakin. We're like huge Star Wars at Conservice. I want to throw that out there. Like we have processes called Yoda, Anakin, Skywalker, Jedis, like we have the whole deal. But Colton came up with an idea of Anakin, and he said, you know what, I bet once we scan that bill, we can utilize the data off of that bill, and we can suck that in faster. And I remember seeing the first demo of that and comparing it side by side with one of our awesome data entry people. And the data entry person, I mean, even as fast as they could type, it took about, I don't know, just for lack of knowing the exact time, about 2 minutes to enter that bill, right? They would go through, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And we put 13 bills in under a second on the next iteration with what Colton had built. And I was like, no way, that is not possible. Like, we're data entry people. Like, get back, go away. And then did it again. And he's like, oh, but I made an error, let me fix that. Da-da-da-da. And he fixed the error within like 30 seconds. And if I had to fix Lightsaber, which was our data entry tool, it would take a whole new release and install the deployment of it, and then any bugs that came up after that because we didn't have great testing processes in place. And so Colton was able to go through that and fix something so much faster, and my eyes just went, boo! And I said, okay, Colton, you're hired. Your job is official now. You can stay. But that's one of the experiences that we used, and we just kept hiring developers to figure out these problems. And we really did. We grew from 1 bill, and I think when I joined, the company as a whole rates itself by size by the number of units or the number of apartments or dwellings that we have under contract. And when I started, we had about 30,000 units, and that was mostly just the Wasatch portfolio. And now we've got 6.5 million under our watch, and it's a function of numbers, right?
Internationally too, is that right?
We do. We have things in Canada. We have things in Puerto Rico. We have things in where else internationally are we? Those are the 2. I think those are the 2. We've looked at Brazil. We've looked at China. Those are big endeavors. So we haven't pulled the trigger on those yet.
Thanks. I don't know if this slide will advance. Let me see. Oh, there we go. This was what you just said there about data entry is really interesting, because I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you guys know this. I don't know if a lot of you students know just how quickly data is accumulating.
Holy cow.
Over time. I mean, I'm not just talking about a Conservice, although it obviously is, but we're at the point now where every couple of years, the amount of data that we generate and store on this planet exceeds all of the data that were generated and stored prior to that, up to this point in history. Like every couple of years that's happening.
We're contributing to that.
Yeah. And so, you know, this is an Economist article. This was a cover story from a few years ago that demonstrates, it was kind of meant to illustrate how every company now is a data company. It doesn't matter what your product is. It doesn't matter what your service is. Every company's a data company. So, at Conservice, you've moved from, really efficient, data entry, being able to process data very quickly so you can serve your customers better. But now you have piles of data, that you have available to you. So, what this, by the way, what this economist graphic is illustrating is that the companies that can actually mine their data, so companies that can, those oil platforms with information-based company names on them illustrate the fact that these companies, if they can mine that data, they can pipe it and they can use it and they can leverage it, then they can make life even better for their customers and they can monetize that as well. So tell me how Conservice has moved kind of in their evolution from kind of like a data entry processing company now to kind of more using that data to analyze how to make people's lives better, I guess.
Sure. So a couple of thoughts there. Is anybody here because they don't want to land a good job and make a lot of money? Just be honest. I mean, this might be a requirement for something, but typically that's why you go to school, right? You get educated in a field so that you can go and you can live a lifestyle or gain enough money to live the lifestyle that you want, probably for you and your family and anybody who depends on you. And the same is at Conservice, and the same is regarding your question on data. So when we used to process a lot of bills, we still have a mail room. We have a lot of bills that we can't get electronically. So we have these positions at our company where people will go in and they will they'll feed them through the opener, and we'll extract these bills out of these, and then we'll scan them to get them into a digital format, right? And I remember thinking at one point, I was like, man, this is utility data. This is like worthless. It's not sensitive. It's not. There's no security risk. I mean, what's somebody going to do if they get a hold of my utility data? And man, I missed the boat. I was way wrong. We used to process bills with the mindset that we wanted to avoid late bills. That was the challenge to solve at the time. And now we have had to rewrite our system to some degree to include what we call our line item data. People don't just want to see, or clients don't just want to see their amount due. They want to see how much usage they used. They want to see that same data, how much they used in off-peak hours. They want to see that compared to benchmarking data across the entire portfolio to know if they're getting screwed from the provider. They want to know all kinds of things about these. They want to use that data to see if their business is sustainable. ESG is a huge, huge thing in the market right now. In fact, we just purchased a company out of Chicago called Gobi last year. And Gobi is our sustainability company. And so we've coupled that data with what they're doing, and it's like the full package. We can analyze somebody's company and their utility data to say, okay, yep, here's the changes you need to make or you will be left behind in the foreseeable future. If not, if you already have things in case, here's things to watch out for. And we do this whole analysis, and this is being pushed very hard in the industry right now.
Yeah, I mean that's actually really stunning. I mean, there's no company on this planet, in terms of utility management that has more data than you do. I mean, I would imagine that there are a lot of applications when it comes to there are lots of applications when it comes to just energy usage, which interconnect with all kinds of issues in today's world, like climate change and so on, that are important to your clients. So, are there any other kind of applications in that area that you've been drilling down into? Yeah.
So we have clients who have vendors. They're not really our clients, but they're a vendor of the client, a client of the client, and they have been hired to do a different type of analysis in all kinds of different regions. We've been contacted by the FBI in cases where they want to see a resident's usage to see if they could have been in their apartment at the time they said they were there or not. We've been contacted by providers to see if the rates that they're receiving from the government are correct. We've been contacted by deregulated areas, so the competition can have a norm on a baseline when we sell electricity. You guys remember was it last year or 2 years ago when Texas was hit by that huge storm? And guess who was a utility provider in that area? Conservice. We had bought a company, it was called Illuminar Energy, and we bought and sold electricity. Typically, we're out of that now, but we bought electricity for, man, I'm going to slaughter, it was like 7 cents per kilowatt. And then we would resell it for 9 cents per kilowatt. There was give or take a few hundredths of a cent. When that black swan event happened, that rate jumped from 9 cents per kilowatt to $9,000 per kilowatt. And we wrote off $65 million.
Wow.
Because of that, I mean, and the way that it was set up, we wouldn't send a utility bill to a resident that was $25,000. That didn't make any sense to us.
Yeah. I didn't realize you guys were in the thick of that whole event.
Yep. That was kind of the hazing ritual for our new CEO. He'd been there about 3 weeks.
Ouch. Well, let me just kind of switch gears just slightly because you are really an information tech company, a data-oriented company, and we know how hot that area, that domain has been in the state of Utah. I don't know if any of you students know this, but a couple of years ago, the Kem Gardner Institute down at the University of Utah identified Utah as basically the hottest tech market in terms of job growth in the country, of any state in the country. I think at that time, 2-3 years ago, wage growth year on year was something like 17-18%. Something just crazy in Utah, which dwarfed any other state in the United States. But I guess from where you sit, as a CIO of this company that has had such an amazing growth record, what is it about Utah that has kind of led to this era that we're in? Why is it that tech and information, the growth of tech and information-based companies has been so marked over the last couple of decades in Utah?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say look out the window. That view, Utah's a beautiful place to live. It's a little cold once in a while. I was reminded of the canyon wind coming in here. It's a little chilly. That's a good question. It used to be California, right? And Silicon Valley is still a thing. That was where Apple was created. That was where many of the tech things we take advantage of today, that was the birthplace. And then Silicon Slopes became a thing. And I think that the ability to have a good life and have the infrastructure, I think both play into that. We have a data center down in Salt Lake, and it sits right on the backbone of the internet. And if the internet were to ever go down, and that's like, that doesn't do it justice when you say the internet itself, right? The web, the whatever. It sits on the network infrastructure of right in the national importance level. And so that's what we chose to do because we want our data, again, knock on wood. I'm slightly superstitious when I talk about it, so don't invite karma to come out. But I think that people realize that, and especially after COVID, working remote, you can live virtually anywhere you want. And Utah's very family oriented. We seem to like relationships with people. We like friendships. I'm sure this is not anything new for other places in the company, but we emphasize that. That is a mantra for our state. And I think that the ability to have tech in that goes a long way.
Yeah, and what about, I guess Dave Jenkins, is a good example of this, but what about, what have you observed, I guess, about the entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, in this domain in the state?
Yeah, very much so. The American dream, right? Go build something and own a business and do something. Utah thrives on that. You look at the different companies that we've had blow up. I mean, we have Adobe on the corner of the mountain down there. We have Qualtrics. I remember Ryan Smith, CEO of Qualtrics used to be. He came to an Oak Ridge party one time. I just about threw him out. Yeah, Utah thrives off of entrepreneurship. We really do. We love the ability for someone to come up with an idea that we can rally behind.
And what would you say, I guess, based on your experience, and especially given what you've observed at Conservice, how successful Conservice has been based on, based on Dave's initial idea. I mean, what kind of advice would you give to these students about the way that they should kind of approach their future once they actually have this foundation here in the Huntsman School?
Okay, all the faculty, plug your ears for just a second. This is not going to be the popular thing. Everybody works to make money. There is so much opportunity to learn and still make money. You come to school, you pay money, so it's kind of the inverse operation. But when I worked for Conservice, I learned more in the first 6 months that I worked there than I had done my entire mechanical engineering attempt. So when I came to Utah State, just a little more backstory to that. So I started mechanical engineering at Idaho State. I also played football. I was Rudy for the 1 year that I played. And I moved down here, and I still tried to be a mechanical engineer. And I went from all A's to all A's and a B to all B's to a few C's to nearly flunking out, to nearly not being able to make it. And it was difficult to spend that much time and work 2 jobs and have an internship and do all this stuff. And then I switched over to information systems at the time. And I remember, man, I learned how to solve problems as an engineer. I learned how to think about what is the problem, how do you solve it, what tools are available to me, and how do I maximize that? And I think that concept holds true. But I also think that I missed the boat on some of the things and taking advantage of it. I was so concerned about making money and providing, and that was really my focus. And that wasn't bad, but until I did that free internship at Conservice, I didn't realize the importance of that. We have some great resources in Cache Valley. I mean, I'll hook you up with any Conservice people you want. I brought 2 of them here today. They're looking, they're recruiting, they're going to come bug everybody. But these are sharp guys. They have built and done awesome things. There's huge value in building and learning yourself, but take advantage of the people around us. I'm sure there are giants in the room that have all kinds of experience, and a lot of them work for USU and are at your disposal. The classes they teach, I think of Eric Hawley's class, I think of Bob Mills' class, Zolt Ugre. These are all classes that I went through, and it's good content. It really is. And then go apply security to it and see how you could break it. Like, really become passionate about it. Dive into it. See what you can do with it. You guys get to control your careers. You get to control your outcome and how much you learn. And you can, for me, I kind of did some of it half-assed. I really, half-heartedly, it's the better word. I didn't put my whole soul into it until I realized that. And I would invite everybody to jump into it. You get to take advantage of the people you work with and the people you study with. And you really do have some great resources.
So tell me a little more about that. The world changes so rapidly, especially on the tech and data side. How is it that you have kept up, with developments yourself? Like, what do you do just personally to kind of continually learn new things?
Yeah, good question. I was invited to be on the USU board, the advisory board for information systems, so that definitely helps, being in the loop on what's being taught. Also being a part of different forums, depending on what interests you. When you sign up for, there's a whole bunch of different learning platforms. You've got Pluralsight, you've got Safari Books, you've got, I don't even know what the... Coursera, you got the latest and greatest are. They'll ask you what your interests are, and you'll get feeds from those. Don't be afraid to just dive in on those when you have free time. I know you don't have a lot of free time in school, but when you have free time, read about something you know nothing about that interests you, and keep up with that. And then watch the news. Like, we've gotten into security. When I came into the tech field, security was not a big deal. I mean, it was a big deal for government and for government contracts and SDL and things like that. But for the private sector, security wasn't that big of a deal, right? It wasn't too important. Now security is everywhere, right? We can't do anything with security. And as our company has gotten bigger, holy cow, we have all kinds of things. I used to curse Bank of America. They used to be my number one hate client because they made us do so many audits and so much security. Nobody works for Bank of America, do they?
Andy Brim used to. So
Okay. Okay, he knows what I'm talking about.
He's not there anymore.
But yeah, that interests me, right? I like security, and any time that I go into a conversation, I bring the security mindset, and I'm like, well, how would you break it? How would you get into it? Is two-factor authentication set up? Is it encrypted? Is it, I mean, all things you learn in school, right? It's fun to put those concepts into practice. Take advantage of Mr. Hawley here. He's one of the best in the nation at what he does.
Eric, raise your hand. This is the CIO for Utah State University, and he's also in our department and teaches.
But people have great experience. The benefit that I've had, and again, I feel very fortunate to have this, is Dave took a chance on me. I was not the most qualified person for the position at the time, but he said, well, somebody's got to do it, so you get the opportunity. And what an opportunity. Like, take advantage of those situations that are placed in front of you. The reason that I got a job at Conservice or did an internship was because I was talking to a guy in my neighborhood, and they used a software called Yardi. And guess what software I used at Oak Ridge? Yardi. And it happened to be on the conversation. And we, if you look at it from a textbook view, we built the relationship, we expanded the network, we went and applied, and then we applied concepts from school. It's easy to see that now. In the mix, it was like, I guess we could try that, right? But I see that now. Take advantage of those opportunities.
Thanks. Just a couple more things, and we're going to have a minute of Q&A. This is that Glassdoor. This is the hottest jobs for 2022 slide from Glassdoor. I almost got the top 10 in there. But you know, when you look down this list, enterprise architect, full stack engineer, which kind of describes, engineer certainly overlaps with Scott and Colton. Data scientist, DevOps, which again, that intersects pretty heavily with you guys. Just going down that list, I mean, these are not just the hottest jobs in tech. These are the hottest jobs, period. And so tell me a little bit about, you know, how that has impacted kind of your operation at Conservice over the years, like how your information and data needs have grown. I mean, like you say, Dave actually comes from an HR background, but yet he founded and grew a data information-based company. So tell me how that kind of infuses all parts of the business in terms of everybody's kinds of roles at the company.
We use the crap out of data right now. We use it just in about everything we do.
That's our new tagline for our department, by the way. We use the crap out of data. So I want to put that on all our materials.
I'm from Idaho.
Yeah.
So if you think of, let's start with the employee experience at Conservice. So a person applies, they apply online, careers.conservice.com. They have to put in a resume. We look at that resume and we look at a bunch of data. We see some factors and we judge that data and we put it through some algorithms and we say, okay, here's our top choices. We then reach out to that person, but we have to know their contact information. So we have personal data, and instantly we start a profile on that person, much like any profiling system. And once we establish that, we have to assess their skills, and so they go through an interview process, and we use data in those skills, in those assessments. We then take that data, we compare it against other ones, and we say, okay, out of the 20 applicants that we got today, here's the 15 best, based on what we know about data, about previous ones. And then we say, okay, they have these strengths and these weaknesses. That's going to tie to this department or the IT department or the billing department or whatever we have open. And then we make those introductions and we say, okay, you're possibly a good fit for here, so let's vet that out a little bit further. And we have them meet with more specific people. And that profile just continues to build, right? And it continues to get bigger and bigger. And this used to be something we took for granted. This used to be we didn't recognize the value of the data and the value of the comparisons. Quantity tends to bring that to light. So then once you get a job at Conservice, you do something, you walk in and we as a company, we will give you a laptop and we'll give you 2 extra screens because we not only want you to have the data, we want you to be able to view that data and view whatever your job entails. And so right off the bat, you get 3 screens. COVID changed the resource pool just a little bit, so we've had some exceptions there, but that's our standard we try to shoot for. And you're on a network where that data itself has to travel to and from places. And we monitor that. And our systems team and our network team, they'll come in and they'll say, holy crap, our 10 gig connection is saturated. What is happening? And they'll reach out to Scott and they'll reach out to Colton. And they'll say, yeah, are you guys running something big? Like what is going on? Something is breaking the rules right now. And they're like, holy crap, there's something that is running right now. And that's like, man, this is like a day in the life of Conservice. And then we have clients who communicate with us, and our clients are interesting. This is the lifeblood of our company. And we have management firms. That's common terminology. So we have one property. One property is owned by a management firm. You think of the relationship values they have, and management firms may be run by owners. And we have contact information and notes on all of these different levels. And then we adjust our business based on how we know and what we know about those clients. For example, a couple of weeks ago, our CEO came and said, hey, Rich, do you want to take over the billing department? And I was like, do I have a choice? And I was like, sure, I'll take over the billing department. So I'm over the billing department now. Billing is our top product we have at Conservice. And I've learned a ton in the last 2 weeks. And I've learned that I don't know as much about our data as I thought I did, which is interesting to me. Because as long as I've been there in the position I'm in, I should know everything about our data. And I was wrong. Have you guys ever seen Kung Fu Panda, the old one? When they established level 0, I have established level 0 in our billing platform. And interesting, because I remember building a lot of the tools that we use, but I've never used it, or it's been 17 years since I've used it in the way that I'm using it now. I built my first property this week. It took me 3 days in a process that takes an expert 7 minutes, and that we're improving to take 13 seconds. We record that data in a relational database inside of SQL Server right now. We then replicate that data to a reporting database. So we have near real-time reporting for a majority of our items. We then take a secondary copy of that replicated data and we dump it into Azure to build a data warehouse, because now we want to analyze it. Now we want to see what we're doing with that and how can we view that and how can I know as the head of billing if we're on track or not. We use data everywhere. Everything that we do is data related.
Is it fair to say that, most everybody at your company, regardless of their role, it's helpful if they have some literacy and
Very
data?
much so. Very much so. You have a leg up on almost anybody if you can work with data.
Great. You said the magic word, SQL. We love SQL in this building.
We love SQL.
And by the way, he also mentioned Azure. I mean, I just want to put this out there as well for you students. We did actually initiate a cloud computing class, which is kind of a broad kind of cloud tools class that we just started teaching in the department over the past year or so.
Do you guys know what the benefit of Azure is? One of the immediate tangible benefits of Azure is? Do you know how many guys I employ to keep our systems and our data centers up? A whole bunch, because servers fail. 2 nights ago, I had a hard drive fail in a SAN that we have in a redundant data center in Denver. We got to manage that. When it's in Azure, you pay a little bit more, but all of those employee expenses and all of those intangible costs, they go away. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, there's a big shift to.
And it's a mindset shift for me because I'm a control guy. I like to control the data. I like to control the server. But man, I hate getting a phone call at 3 a.m.
Yeah. Why don't we? We're gonna. Are we ready for in a minute, Bob? Okay, we'll do that in just a minute. We're gonna play a little game with Rich.
Oh man.
For just a second, but we're gonna draw on Colton and Scott too, so they're not gonna be held harmless here. Before we do that, though, we want to give any students here an opportunity to ask questions if you have any for Rich.
Anything's on the table.
Yes, thanks. And let's see, Victor's got the mic, so make sure to state your name and your major as well.
Hi, my name's Blake. I'm a data analytics major. What are some problems you're tasked with? What are some examples of problems you're tasked with solving day to day, utilizing your data?
So most recently, the last 2 weeks since I've taken over the billing department, I'm trying to figure out why our billing is going out late. So we send out about 3.5 million resident utility bills every month. And we implemented a change in July, and our on time, we measure on time and accuracy, our timeliness and accuracy. And we're tanking in both those areas right now. I think that's why I got the invitation to see if I can come work with billing. And I'm using the heck out of data right now to see, okay, what properties are late? Why are they late? Is it dependent on another product? Is it people related? If it is people related, what can we do to help them? Were they trained? When did they start? Do they have the right equipment? All the time, like every day.
Could I ask a related question?
Please.
What is one question that's been maybe bothering you that you feel like if you had kind of unlimited time in your life that you could answer with your data that you just haven't been able to look at yet?
Related to Conservice?
Yeah, just related to your business.
So that's a big question. So we always look at what is the market potential for Conservice. When I started at Conservice, I understood the market was 2 million units, and we wanted to have half of that market. We've got 6.5 million units, and we think we're at about 30% of the market. So validating how big our potential actually is. I would love to know that, because that affects how we're going to build the next version of our system and what we need to know.
Thanks. Other questions from students? Yeah, we've got one back there, Victor. Right, fourth row back.
My name is Brandon, and I'm studying accounting. And I just have a question. If you could do it all again, what would you do differently?
My wife is an accountant, so good field. She's a CPA. If I could do it all again, I don't know that I would do much different. I would build our software a little bit different. We were laughing about that earlier. At the time, it seemed like the right way to do it. Didn't know everything that I know now, so I would maybe build that a little different, and it might avoid some headaches. I work with a gentleman named Heath Jones, and that's Heath's mantra. He says, "What would future Heath do or what would current Heath do that future Heath's going to enjoy? What decisions can I make now that will make life easier in the future?"
Thanks. There's a question over on that side, Victor.
Okay. I'm Reagan Watron. I'm an econ. I have a question. When you guys are talking about going into international markets, what do you guys look at that's going to be different than operating in the U.S.? And how do you guys kind of like adapt your systems to fit that?
Good questions. So when we entered the Canada market, in the U.S., utilities are somewhat regulated but not standardized. And we didn't understand that. I didn't understand that. We didn't know that. If we look at China, China has a completely different set of regulations on the billing on their utilities, different than Brazil, different than everything. And so the actual legal implications of doing that business, we think of the U.S., it's a private market. In an international sense, that goes away, and it becomes very complicated. Also, the language barrier. Everything that we print, I know that Google Translate makes this easier, but from a production standpoint, that becomes a challenge. We have to have the ability to do that. Time zones. Who we work with and how we staff our business, our call center. We pride ourselves on customer service at Conservice, and so the ability to serve our customers becomes a challenge, and we don't want to tarnish our reputation in that if we can't match what they're expecting. Those are some things we talk about.
Thank you very much. Good questions. Any other questions?
Hi, I have a question for you guys. My name's Sierra Brown. Also, I'm management, but specifically operations management. And so one question I had was, what trends are you seeing within your company that are going to help you later, like develop a new product or service potentially?
Good question. We have a gentleman at our company named Quentin Smith, and he's our M&A guy. We call him our mergers and acquisitions guy. And we have a value in our company based on the number of units that we get under contract. And so we're always looking at can we buy some of our competitors? Can we buy products that they have? Can we increase that unit count? Because if we can buy them at a certain rate, the minute they come under our umbrella, they're automatically worth another rate because of our size of our company. So that's one thing we look at. This ESG platform that I mentioned when we bought that company, Gobi, that was based on a trend that we'd been following for a while on the sustainability aspect of companies. And that gets into some boring talk to me. That's not my favorite thing to talk about. But the fact that our company had all of that data, it made a lot of sense to transition and say, okay, we can go after this market. And it's a multi-million-dollar market. We can make a lot of money there.
Thanks. Well, why don't we finish by playing a little special game we've cooked up for Rich and his colleagues today.
man.
Thanks. You guys are good sports.
Oh, man.
But Bob Mills, distinguished professor in our department who teaches SQL. And I don't know if you guys know this, but actually, all the data classes that Huntsman students take now require, some Excel and a little bit of Python and a little bit of SQL. So there's a little dab of that everywhere. So Colton, Scott, I'm going to have you guys come up. Bob is going to kind of help MC here.
Yeah, Jenna
We can all
Olson
stand up.
was the last person in the room, so I asked if she would come up. Jenna's not currently in 3330 or 4330, but she took it last semester,
Okay, good.
so she's feeling pretty
Did you
confident.
say Jenna or
Jana.
Jana? Good.
Oh, a few semesters,
Jana, can you introduce yourself to us?
Hi, I'm Jenna Olson. I'm an international business major and an MIS minor. So
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, you guys all stand up. Maybe we should do this in teams. Yeah, I like. So Colton, you and Scott versus Jana and Rich. Does that sound
All
good?
right.
So come up here on the dais so everybody can see you. We're calling this game, Are You Smart Enough to Be a CIO?
Shouldn't we have 3 against?
If this goes well, I got
Yeah.
a job waiting for her.
So think of this, no pressure, but think of this as maybe a little bit of an interview here. Okay. Bob is one of our SQL gurus. So he's gonna give us a little quizaroo. Because you can't come on campus, Scott, Colton, Rich, you can't come on campus without getting quizzed. It's part of life. So Bob, he's gonna ask a SQL question. And then let's start out with Scott and Colton, and then the second question will be for them.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
I always have questions. I don't have answers, so this is good. All right, so this is for those taking the test today, because it's due tomorrow for 3330.
Wow, hot tip.
You want to do a list of companies from A to Z. All right, simple order by company. You could put ASC, but it's optional, right? Order by company. Here's the difference. For you two, we want Conservice to be at the top of the list regardless. So what would you code in the order by?
Is this going to be for both of us? Just them, okay.
Yeah.
Give them a hard one. Just do us a select star.
We're going to go with a having clause.
Or talk loud.
We're going to go with a having clause, having the company name, first character, like a percent, like C, capital C.
I think those in 3330, 4330 would know that is correct. No, not correct. So, okay, so the having clause, you have to have a group by to use the having clause. The having clause would be an aggregate function, right? You wouldn't use it with the wildcard character or the like. So, we'll move over here to Rich and Jenna.
Go ahead.
We're looking at the order by clause, right? We have a list of companies from A to Z. That's just order by company, ASC, semicolon. But the difference is we just want Conservice at the top, no matter what. Rich and Jenna.
You guys want to consult first?
I trust her.
By the way, Bob, look, let's be honest, Scott's a guest, and that evaluation was a little bit rude. And so I just want to know what kind of partial credit we're giving here. I mean,
But he graduated from Utah, not USC.
Whoa! That was a little far there, Rich.
Go Aggies!
Yeah. Okay, but what do we have like a percent, like
They got-
partial credit?
5%.
Wow.
It's better than
Don't
0.
worry. Bob works for me, Scott, so don't worry. I'll deal with this later. So kind of a harsh grader. Okay, Jana, go ahead.
Okay, so wait, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd have your order by function, clause, whatever, and then you'd put a case expression inside of the order by Conservice. When Conservice is 0, wait, no, yeah, when Conservice 0, sorry, and then else 1, and then you'd order by company.
So for those taking the test today, right? That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well done. Good job. Good job. Thanks.
My team.
That's I mean, if we were scoring this in football points, it would be 7-0, I guess, but or maybe 7-2. I mean, given the partial credit. 7-3. First of all, let me just say about Colton and Scott. Rich mentioned this earlier, but they are the guys that you want to meet from Conservice if you're interested in networking. Kind of after we conclude here, please come up and introduce yourselves if you're interested in kind of talking to them about the sorts of opportunities they have at Conservice. Where's the mic? Do you still have it? Oh, okay, Victor, do you want to hand it to Colton actually? Colton, do you want to share with us like what opportunities there are in terms of like any internship programs or anything right now?
Yeah, but I want to start with, for the record, I've been writing SQL at Conservice for 10 years. That order has never even crossed my mind as something I've wanted to do. Yeah, I don't know if I would know as much as Scott here, but I actually started at Conservice as an intern. And Rich made a joke that I presented that software idea, and he was like, "Okay, you can stay now." Like that's pretty good. Most of our department is built off of the idea of hiring people with good ideas and tailoring them towards what we know about software and how we work with it. And so we have a lot of Utah State graduates that came on as an intern or came on as a recent graduate and have worked out great for us. I don't know if we have like openings at this moment. That would be Scott here.
Sure. Yeah, Scott.
No, we
Go ahead,
do. We
please.
do almost always. We're almost always hiring. On the beginner level, it's a little bit tough. I recommend just getting a little bit of experience under your belt, but typically we do have openings for pretty low-level, entry-level positions.
Great.
And it's great to get that experience under your belt. I mean, that's worth its weight in gold on a resume.
Thank you very much. Just like I said, they'll be around here for a few minutes after we finish if you want to kind of come up and meet them and talk to them. But again, very our biggest thanks for coming today, Rich, and spending this time with us. Colton, Scott, thank you so much for coming. Thanks for participating in our game. Let's give it up for Rich and the rest of our panel today.